They said it so casually. "We'll grab coffee. Just 5 minutes," as if I hadn't raised them, clothed them, fed them from hands that now trembled. I nodded and watched their car disappear into the dusk, believing they'd return before the last light left the sky. It was a roadside gas station off I-84, tucked between two cornfields, and the kind of silence that stretches and thickens as night approaches. The sky had begun to bruise with deep purples and oranges, and the hum of insects rose like a low symphony around me. I sat on a metal bench next to a vending machine with a flickering light. No one noticed me, not the cashier inside, nor the truckers refueling for the long haul. Just an old man with a bag on his lap and a heart that still hoped. My name is Richard Elwood Carrington. I'm 78 years old, and I waited until midnight. I didn't have a phone. My kids said I'd lose it, forget it, or worse, scammed. They weren't entirely wrong. I'd lost plenty of things lately: my wife, my home, and it seemed, their patience. Still, I believed in the benefit of the doubt. "It's what marry me late wife will be," said. "They'll come back, Rich," I whispered to myself, adjusting my faded veteran's cap. "They probably just ran into traffic." But traffic doesn't explain 5 hours. The bench was cold, the kind of cold that crawls into your spine and makes your bones ache. I shifted and tried to stretch my legs, but arthritis had long turned them stiff as branches. Each time the bell above the station door jingled, I looked up, expecting to see Jamie or Rachelme's son and daughter-in-law. Instead, strangers walked in and out, none of them glancing my way. At 7:46 p.m., a kind-eyed cashier named Carla brought me a hot dog and a paper cup of lukewarm coffee. "You okay out here, sir?" she asked, kneeling beside me like I was fragile glass. I lied. "Yeah, my kids are just running late." She smiled, but her eyes didn't believe me. Still, she left the food and patted my hand gently. Jamie had asked me to move in with them after Mary passed. I hesitated at first. My house in Connecticut was full of memories, and I didn't want to be a burden. But he insisted. Said Rachel had made up the guest room just for me. That their grandkids missed me. I sold the house. Gave away most of my things. Kept only what fit in that duffel bag. The first few weeks were good. The kids showed me their drawings. Jamie took me for walks. Rachel brought me coffee in the mornings. I felt I wanted. But slowly, the rhythm changed. The smiles grew thin. The sighs grew heavier. I forgot to turn off the stove once, burned a pot of oatmeal, and Rachel didn't speak to me for 2 days. Jamie began working later. The kids stopped visiting my room. I wasn't blind. I knew the signs of fading affection. I'd seen it in nursing homes when I visited old war buddies. Still, I thought family was different. At 9:03 p.m., I tried to stand up. My knees buckled, and I dropped the coffee, splattering it across the concrete. A young man in a hoodie stepped around me without a glance. I sat back down, felt the shame rise hot in my chest. You'd think, at 78, a man would stop hoping, that he'd know when he's been abandoned. But hope is a stubborn thing. It clings like cobwebs in forgotten corners. I kept thinking they'd come back with coffee and maybe an apology, maybe even a hug. Midnight came. The gas station lights dimmed to night mode. Carla clocked out and waved. I waved back, pretending I wasn't trembling. Then the truth settled like dust in a still room. They weren't coming back. I didn't cry. I wanted to. God, I wanted to let it all out. But something about the night demanded dignity. I sat up straighter, adjusted my cap, whispered a quiet, "Okay then." I didn't hate them. I don't think I ever could. Jamie had been a sweet boy once, curious and kind. I still remember him bringing me wildflowers for Father's Day when he was 5. But somewhere along the way, the world sped up, and I became a weight. Not a father, not a war vet, not a man who built furniture with his hands and kissed his wife every morning for 42 years. Just that weight. And weight gets dropped. I pulled out a photo from my coat pocket. It was of Mary and me on our wedding day, black and white, edges worn thin. Her smile still warmed me. I whispered to her like I used to when the nights got too quiet. "I guess it's just me now, hon." A truck rolled by, its headlights sweeping across the parking lot, then vanishing into the dark. The night didn't answer, but it didn't need to. I had no idea what would happen next, whether I'd sleep on that bench or wander somewhere new. But for the first time in hours, I stood on my own. My knees shook, but I was still standing. The first steps away from that bench felt like walking on broken glass, each joint stiff with the weight of age and disappointment. But I moved anyway. Not because I knew where I was going, but because staying meant giving up. And I wasn't ready to do that. The gas station door chimed behind me as I stepped inside. A few fluorescent lights flickered overhead, painting everything with that sterile bluish hue. Carla was gone. The night shift Kita pale teenager with half-closed eyes and earbuds in barely glanced at me. I walked over to the counter, my hand resting on the edge to steady myself. "Hey," I said, my voice barely above the hum of the refrigerator behind him. "Do you have a phone I can use?" He didn't take his eyes off his phone. "Yeah, payphone's outside. Left side of the building." I blinked. "Do you have a landline?" "I don't have coins." That got his attention. He finally looked at me, and his expression softened a little, like maybe he saw his own grandpa in the slump of my shoulders. "I'm not supposed to, but I guess you can use the one in back." He pushed aside a plastic curtain and gestured me through a narrow hallway that reeked of mop water and bleach. There was a phone mounted on the wall, a dusty beige receiver with buttons that stuck. I dialed Jamie's number from memory. It rang. Once. Twice. Then voicemail. "Jamie, it's Dad," I said quietly. "I'm still at the station. I think you forgot me. Maybe something happened. I hope you're okay. Just call me back." I hung up. Waited. Dialed again. Same thing. Rachel didn't answer either. My knees buckled and I leaned against the wall, breathing in the scent of mold and regret. My hand trembled. For a moment, I felt like I might collapse there, in that hallway no one ever noticed, a ghost among gas station cleaning supplies. Then the door swung open, and the teen walked in with a can of soda in his hand. "Hey," he said. "You okay?" I nodded, swallowing hard. "Yeah. Thanks for letting me use the phone." He lingered. "You got someone coming?" I thought I did. He looked uncomfortable. "If you want, I could call someone for you. A taxi? Or a shelter?" The word shelter hit me like a slap. I'd never thought I'd hear that word associated with myself. But I managed a small smile. "Appreciate it. But I think I'll sit a bit longer. Maybe they'll come." He nodded, then hesitated. "You want a bottle of water or something? I can get it. No charge." "Water'd be nice." He returned a minute later with a small bottle and a plastic-wrapped sandwich. "Turkey. Didn't know what you liked." "Turkey's just fine," I said, voice raspy. "Thank you, son." He smiled, awkward but genuine, and disappeared back to the front. I sat in the hallway and ate that sandwich slowly. Every bite tasted like a memory. Mary's Thanksgiving dinners, Jamie's lunchboxes, the picnics we used to take by Lake Winnebago. I chewed, and I remembered, and for a little while I didn't feel quite so lost. When I stepped outside again, the sky had deepened to velvet black, pricked with stars. The wind cut colder now, and I pulled my coat tighter. There was no plan, no map, just instinct. I walked toward the road, one slow step at a time. A diner sign glowed a quarter-mile down the highway, Marla's 24-hour cafe. The walk took forever. Cars zoomed by, none of them slowing. A few drivers looked at me like I was some old fool who'd wandered out of a memory. But when I pushed open the diner's door, warm air rushed around me like an old friend. A waitress with silver hair and tired eyes looked up from behind the counter. "Have a seat, honey. Want coffee?" "Please," I said, sliding onto a stool. She poured it without another word and slid over a menu. The place was mostly empty, save for a trucker in the back booth and a teenage couple whispering over fries. "You look like you've been through it," the waitress said kindly. "Need something hot? Maybe just pancakes, if that's okay." She smiled. "Pancakes are always okay." The coffee warmed my hands. The food warmed my chest. I watched her move behind the counter, graceful in the way older women often are, tired but steady. "You from around here?" she asked after a while. "Used to be. A long time ago. Now I'm just passing through, I suppose." She didn't press, just nodded like she understood something I didn't say. After I finished eating, I dug into my coat pocket. My fingers brushed against the crisp fold of $100 bill, one of the few Jamie had handed me that morning before the trip, probably out of guilt. I placed it on the counter. "Keep the change," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "That's too much." "You've been kind," I replied. "And kindness is rare these days." She looked at me for a long moment, then gave a small nod. "You need a place to rest tonight?" "I suppose I do. There's an old motel 2 blocks down. Tell Pete that Nora sent you. He'll give you the warm room, the one with the red blanket. No charge for veterans." I blinked. "How did you?" She just smiled, and poured me another cup of coffee. You've got the eyes. Seen too much. Lost more than you say. My late husband was the same. I wanted to thank her, to tell her she'd saved me more than she knew. But instead, I just said, "You've got a good soul." And she replied, "So do you, even if your son can't see it." I didn't ask how she knew. Maybe we give off a scent when we're discarded. Maybe she just understood the weight of waiting. The walk to the motel felt softer than the last. The wind was kinder. I found the sign briar and flickering above a low row of rooms. I knocked on the office door, and a man in a flannel shirt appeared, gruff but not unfriendly. "You Pete?" "Depends who's asking." "Nora sent me. Said there's a red blanket room." He looked me over, then nodded. "Come on in. You need heat, you'll get it." The room was small, but warm. Smelled of pine cleaner and dust, and somehow, it felt like the first real place I'd belonged in months. I sat on the edge of the bed, kicked off my shoes. My phone didn't ring. My son didn't call. But I slept. For the first time in weeks, I actually slept. I awoke just past dawn. Sunlight filtered through the beige curtains in soft gold stripes, brushing the edge of the red blanket Nora had promised. It took me a moment to remember where I was not in my bed back in Connecticut, not in Jamie's house where I never quite belonged, and certainly not still waiting at the gas station. No, I was in a stranger's kindness. I sat up slowly, letting my joints catch up to the idea of motion. The ache was dull today, like it had resigned itself. I stared at the little nightstand clock. 6:12 a.m. No calls. No messages. No sign that anyone had remembered I existed. I stood, washed my face in the small, squeaky bathroom sink, and looked at the man in the mirror. My beard had grayed unevenly. My cheeks were sunken. But behind the lines and the weary eyes, there was still something solid. A spine that refused to bow. I packed my bag slowly, folded the red blanket out of habit, then smiled and left it on the bed. I scribbled a note for Pete on the back of a napkin I found in the drawer. "Thank you. You gave an old man more than shelter. You gave him a place to be human." As I stepped outside, the morning air smelled of dew and diesel. Trucks were already moving along the highway, hauling whatever it was that America needed that day. And May was hauling memory, regret, and the smallest seed of something close to peace. I walked back toward the diner. Nora was there, same uniform, same tired eyes, but they lit up when she saw me. "Did you rest?" "Like a boy in his mother's house," I said with a smile. She poured coffee without asking. "You got somewhere to go now?" "That's the thing," I said. "I don't. Not really. But I figure that's not all bad." She leaned on the counter, her eyes studying me. "You need work? There's a guy 2 towns over runs a wood shop. Always looking for someone who knows their way around a saw." I told him I might know a guy. I chuckled. "Been a long time since I built anything." "Muscle remembers," she said simply. I sipped the coffee. It was weak, but warm. "I've been thinking," I said after a moment, "about what it means to be discarded." She raised an eyebrow. "When your own children leave you at a gas station," I said quietly, "you start asking questions you didn't know were waiting. Like, was I really that hard to love? Did I fail them that much?" Nora didn't interrupt. She just waited. "But then you meet strangers," I continued. "People who owe you nothing, and they show you grace. And you think, maybe I didn't fail entirely. Maybe it wasn't me. Maybe it was never about you," she said. "Some people break under pressure and blame the weight they're carrying. Doesn't mean the weight was wrong. Just means they were weak." I felt something crack inside me, like a frozen branch finally letting go. "You're wise," I said. She smiled. "Nah, just old and tired. Like you." We shared a quiet laugh. I stayed in that town for 3 days. Helped Pete fix a busted pipe. Sharpened tools at the woodshop Nora had mentioned. Cooked pancakes at the diner on Sunday morning when the cook called in drunk. It was nothing official, nothing permanent. But every smile I got, every handshake, every "thank you, sir," reminded me that I still existed, still mattered. And then, on the morning of the 4th day, it happened. Jamie called. I was sanding down a bench leg outside the shop when Nora came jogging up, phone in hand. "It's your son," she said, breathless. "He called the diner looking for you." I froze. Took the phone with hands that had forgotten how to be steady. "Hello, Dad." Jamie's voice cracked. "Dad, where are you?" I waited. Let silence stretch between us like an ocean. "You left me," I said, voice low. There was a choke breath. "We didn't mean to, Dad. Rachel." We were arguing, and she said things, and I got overwhelmed, and when we left, we thought you'd gone inside. Two didn't even realize until later, and then my phone died, and I didn't know what to. You didn't come back. No, I didn't. His voice broke. I was scared of what it meant, of what it said about me. I looked at the bench leg in my lap, felt the smooth wood, the grain, the years. I raised you to stand by your responsibilities, I said, even when they're hard. I know, I failed you, but please, let me make it right. I hesitated, not out of hate but out of truth. I'm okay now, I said. I found people who reminded me that I'm more than a mistake, that I still have value, and that maybe, for now, that's enough. Dad, come back with me. Please. Not yet. There was silence. Then a whisper. Okay. I hung up, handed the phone back to Nora. You gonna go home? She asked. I looked toward the horizon, the trees, the way the sun danced on sawdust. I think I already am. The town began to feel less like a stop and more like a beginning. After the phone call with Jamie, something inside me shifted, not dramatically, not like the movies where the hero walks into the sunset with music swelling, but something quiet and true. A slow unwinding of tension in my chest. I didn't forgive him right away. That takes more than a single apology. But I also didn't carry the weight the same way anymore. Some things you carry forever. You just learn how to balance them differently. Pete offered me the tool shed behind the motel. Said I could sleep there if I wanted more privacy. I cleaned it out, swept away old nails and cobwebs, found a corner for my duffel bag, and built a little shelf for my books, the few I hadn't given away. I spent my mornings sanding furniture scraps into toys for the kids who came into the diner with their parents. Wooden ducks, trucks, blocks with letters carved in. I didn't ask for anything in return. The joy was in the work, the rhythm, the tiny hands grabbing a toy and beaming like they'd just found treasure. Nora started bringing me leftover pie slices and would sit with me on her breaks. Sometimes she talked about her late husband, who died of lung cancer 5 years earlier. Sometimes we just sat in silence, sipping lukewarm coffee and watching the town pass by. One day she said, "You know, Rich, I think we're all just looking for someone to sit beside us without needing to fix the silence." I nodded. That made sense. At my age, you realize most people talk to respond. Rare ones listen to understand. Rarer still are the ones who say nothing at all and still make you feel heard. The woodshop owner Calvin was a heavy-set man with hands like tree trunks. He didn't say much either, but he watched, the way a man who trusts skill more than words does. After a week of volunteering in his shop, he offered me pay. Not much, but enough to buy fresh socks and a new thermos. I got orders backed up, he said. Holiday rush. You work as slow as moss, but your cuts are clean. That matters. We shook on it. No contract, just a handshake. I hadn't felt that kind of respect in years. By late October, I was part of the rhythm of the town. I was the old man who carved initials into crib railings. The one who fixed the hinges at the school library without asking for a thank you. People started calling me Mr. Carrington, then just Rich. The grocer waved when I passed. A little girl named Ava brought me a drawing of a duck and called it Mr. Quackington. I hung it in the shed like it was art from a museum. But with the new life came new ghosts. Every Sunday, when the church bells rang, I thought of Mary. She loved Sundays, pancakes and hymns. She had a laugh that echoed like wind chimes. When I walked past the florist, I'd think about the way she used to clip tulips in the backyard and press them between pages of old novels. I talked to her sometimes, just short whispers. I'd say, "I'm okay, love. I miss you, but I'm okay." And sometimes, when the wind blew a certain way, I swore she was there, telling me to keep going. Then came the letter. It arrived in Nora's mailbox. No return address, just my name scrawled in Jamie's handwriting. Inside was a folded sheet of lined paper. Dad, I've tried to call, but I figured maybe a letter felt safer. I'm sorry. I've said that already, I know. But I need to say it again. I'm sorry for abandoning you, for making you feel like a burden. I was scared. Scared of watching you get older, of being helpless, of messing up the way I saw you waste away after Mom passed. I didn't know how to hold it. I didn't know how to be strong for you. Rachel and I are trying to work things out. The kids ask about you. Sarah still sleeps with the little wooden owl you made. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know I think about you every day. I miss you. If you ever want to come visit, no pressure, I'll be here. The house is quiet without your humming in the mornings. Love, Jamie. I read the letter 3 times. folded it neatly, slid it into my coat pocket. Forgiveness is a slow dance. You don't rush the steps. But his words, honest and trembling, were enough to make me consider returning one day. Not to stay, not yet, but to see, to let them see. That night, I sat by the river at the edge of town. The stars overhead shimmered, and the moon carved a soft path along the water. I thought about legacy, not the kind in wills or bank accounts, but the quieter kind memories you leave behind in strangers, laughter passed down through children, carvings in wood that outlive the hands that made them. I realized something else too. They hadn't left me at that gas station. They'd left the version of me they didn't know how to hold. The grieving widower. The old man with fragile hands and eyes that saw too much. But in doing so, they gave me a chance and intentionality to find myself again. Not the father, not the husband, not the burden, but the man. Richard Elwood Carrington. The boy who climbed trees in bare feet. The soldier who wrote poetry in war journals. The husband who built a swing for his wife's birthday. The man who found a town that welcomed him not because he was needed, but because he was seen. I closed my eyes and whispered to Mary again. I think I know who I am now. The letter burned a hole in my coat pocket for days. I must have read it 20 times, sometimes aloud, sometimes just by tracing the letters with my finger as if I could touch the remorse inside them. Jamie had always been like his mother in the best and worst ways, gentle, sensitive, but prone to shutting down when life got too heavy. I'd spent weeks building a new rhythm in this town, not just surviving, but living. Each face I passed in the morning greeted me like an old friend. Calvin trusted me with more delicate pieces in the woodshop. Kids started knocking on the tool shed just to say hi or show me something they'd made at school. I was becoming part of the framework here, quiet, weathered, essential. And yet, the letter lingered. On a Thursday morning, Nora found me sketching bird silhouettes on a plank of pine. "Gonna carve those?" she asked. "Eventually," I said. She watched me a moment, then sat on the edge of my workbench. "You thinking about going?" I didn't answer right away. "Then, maybe. Just for a day or two. I want to see their faces." She nodded. "You want them to see yours too." That hit harder than I expected. "Not the face of a man they left behind," I said. "The face of the man I became after." Nora smiled gently. "Then go. We'll still be here when you get back." I didn't pack much. Just the duffel. A book Mary had once gifted me. A carved wooden bird I'd made for Sarah. And a small notebook filled with reflections I'd started keeping, a mix of memory and hope, like letters never sent. Pete offered to drive me to the station. He was silent most of the ride, until we hit the interstate. Then he said, "People always think leaving is the hard part, but sometimes coming back is tougher." He wasn't wrong. I took the early bus north, passed through old towns that blurred into one another, fields, water towers, diners. Familiar landscapes, unfamiliar eyes. I thought about how many people like me were out there, wandering not because they were lost, but because they'd been quietly told they no longer belonged. When I arrived, Jamie was waiting in the parking lot. He looked thinner, more tired. His eyes were rimmed with something that wasn't quite guilt anymore, something closer to fear and hope combined. He stepped forward. "Dad." I looked him in the eye. Let the silence sit there. Not angry, just full. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said. "I wasn't either," I replied. We didn't hug. Not then. But he opened the door for me, and I got in. The house hadn't changed much. Same ivy on the side wall. Same squeaky gate latch. But something inside felt different. I stepped in slowly. The floor creaked under my weight. Sarah came running. "Grandpa." I knelt down, and when she hugged me, I felt something in my chest snap cleanly open. "I missed you," she whispered. "I brought you something," I said, handing her the wooden bird. She gasped. "He looks like the one on the window. Maybe he flew down just for you." Rachel was in the kitchen. She looked stunned, then awkward, then unexpected leaved. "Richard," she said. "I'm glad you came." I nodded. "Me too." We sat. We talked. Slowly, carefully. Jamie made tea, the way Mary used to. I told them about the town, the shed, the kids, the woodshop. They told me about school plays and sick days and Rachel's promotion. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. That night, I slept in the guest room. The same one I'd once felt like a ghost inside. But this time, there were new sheets. A little jar of fresh flowers. A folded towel. Someone had tried. That meant more than they could ever know. In the morning, Jamie knocked on the door. Breakfast's ready, he said. I joined them at the table. Sarah told jokes from a school book. Rachel laughed, truly laughed. Jamie kept watching me like I might vanish. When the meal was done, I stood and cleared my plate. Jamie followed me to the sink. Dad, he said, I want you to come home. For real. Stay? We'll do better this time. I'll do better. I looked out the window, at the tree where Sarah had hung a swing. Mary would have loved that swing. I think, I said carefully, that home isn't always the place you're invited to. Sometimes it's the place that lets you become who you are. Jamie's eyes welled. So, that town, that's your home now. It's where I remembered how to live, I said. I'm not angry, son. Not anymore. But I'm also not the man you left at that gas station. That man waited. This one chooses. He lowered his head. I understand. I placed a hand on his shoulder. I'll visit. Maybe even for holidays. And someday, if I get too old to swing a hammer, maybe I'll come stay. But for now I have work to finish. Kids to carve for. Coffee with a woman who understands silence. He smiled then. A small, cracked thing, but real. We hugged. Not like father and child. Like two men who knew how hard it was to say I forgive you without saying it out loud. I left that afternoon, after reading Sarah's story and promising to write. On the ride back, I opened my notebook and began a new page. Some goodbyes are beginnings in disguise. Some waiting becomes wisdom. And sometimes, the ones who forget you are the ones who teach you how to remember yourself. I was left behind, but I kept walking. And somewhere down the road, I found the version of me they never stayed long enough to meet. The bus hummed along the highway. Fields swayed in the wind. The sky opened wide above me, and for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't waiting anymore. I was moving forward.